Today it was time for me to start pulling the front suspension apart. So I got the car up on the jack stands, on the front end anyway, to have both wheels off the ground basically. This allows you to safely remove the anti-sway bar mount. You don't want it under any torsion when you remove those nuts, otherwise it may just explode off and cause some kind of injury. So that was the first thing I disconnected. And the Americans will appreciate this. Basically everything came off with not much fuss at all. There's not really many rusted nuts and bolts on this car, although some are ridiculously tight, as they're supposed to be. I just used my rattle gun on those anyway, and got them off without any problem. I'm not sure how you'd go about this with extreme levels of rust. You may actually have to cut them off. Now these spring compressors, you have to get them in the correct order. That is the top version, and there's a bottom version as well. You can't put them in the wrong way around, otherwise it doesn't quite work correctly. These are Chinese copies of the original style. The discs are quite thick, and unfortunately I couldn't get them all the way to the top and all the way to the bottom. So unfortunately the compressor maxed out before I could compress the spring fully. And the way I ended up removing them was slightly dangerous, so I'm not going to show you that because I'm not going to recommend that. But nonetheless, this is the general idea. If you had a better quality set, you might have been able to get the top disc further up and the bottom one further down. Because in this position it's really not good enough. It does work, but it's not ideal. And here you can see the compressor working its magic. These springs really are quite long. This is my Milwaukee rattle gun that hasn't been stumped by anything yet. I've not had any nut that I've not been able to remove with it that it could actually fit in. And that's with the spring removed. These ball joints were quite a nightmare to remove. I actually broke my ball joint removal tool. They're stuck in there good and proper. And just look at how much play is on this ball joint here. This explains the ridiculous amount of play there is in this steering. Everything here is going to be new. Hopefully that vastly improves the steering on this car, because it's absolutely atrocious at the moment. It couldn't possibly get any worse. What I'm hoping for is that there's not much wear in the steering box itself, so I don't really want to replace it. And this car's got a reasonable amount of mileage on it, so I would expect all of these struts to be kind of crap, and they are. So I don't think these would be doing much dampening at all. When this car was driving, it was probably like handling a boat. Because if I can do this with one hand, the weight of the car is not going to be much of a challenge for it. Out of interest, the lowering springs, you can see, in comparison to the original, it's about, what, one link, or one coil less. I believe they're firmer, stiffer, so I wouldn't suggest just cutting one coil off, but some people do anyway. This is how I'm leaving it today. I'm going to clean this out a bit better, and then start assembling it once I get a few more bits and pieces that I unfortunately forgot about, like the sway bar rubbers. I'm going to rebuild these knuckles as well with new wheel bearings. The originals seem to be okay, but why the hell reuse them when you're replacing everything else? I was also unamused by the appearance of these eccentric bolts. I think I'll replace those as well. They look kind of crap. And out of interest, look at how shit these top mounts are. They're full of cracks. It's quite astonishing how quickly life passes you by. In 1991, this 10-year-old child dreamed of someday owning a W124. He thought they were the most high-tech looking car he'd ever seen in his life. Here I am, 28 years later, with two of them. Who says dreams don't come true?